In the Crime of the Week segment tonight, a new segment, an awful situation here in New York City. 38-year-old Kirsten Scheveni, a married dermatologist and mother of 3 young children, found dead of an apparent cocaine overdose in a hallway near the street. But no one has been charged, even though police know who was with Dr. Scheveni. With us now, Dan Schorr, former prosecutor, now managing director of an investigative and consulting firm. So what exactly happened to the doctor?
Well, she's a 38-year-old mother of 3 living in Long Island, a successful dermatologist. Tragic story. She was out at a club in Manhattan. She ingested cocaine and alcohol to a great extent, according to the medical examiner. She left with a friend from the club, went to an apartment of another individual, and she was found in the doorway of that apartment building, dead from a cocaine overdose. No one knows how she got the cocaine, and there's been no arrest, but it's a tragic story.
Okay. So she was partying, and again, this is a very esteemed woman in the community.
Absolutely.
3 little kids,
right,
out of Manhattan, girls' night out, whatever. She goes with a guy, and I guess it was like 4 in the morning, right?
She left the club with a friend, according to news reports, and went to an apartment of another individual.
Right, but it was really early in the morning.
Right, exactly.
And the guy was an HBO producer, so
right,
the cops know who she was with.
Right, and those 2 individuals were actually on security camera moving her body after she succumbed.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Sure. So she goes with an HBO producer to a drug dealer's house, right?
He's suspected of being a drug dealer.
Well, he had drug paraphernalia inside the house, I understand.
According to news reports from police sources.
All right. So she goes with this guy after she's been using cocaine and alcohol,
right,
to this house, to this apartment. And then we don't know what happens inside the apartment, but we know the guy's got drug paraphernalia all over the place. I mean, we're not talking joints here. We're talking packaging stuff. So then she collapses. But you have to assume that because the 2 guys, as you just pointed out, are caught on surveillance tape walking her down the stairs, right?
Right, and they leave her in the vestibule, in the doorway area.
They drop her on the floor.
And one of them calls 911. Police come, but they're gone by the time police arrive.
Did the person who called 911 identify themselves?
I don't know if he did on the call, but now it's come to the
all
police.
right, so they call 911. Right. They leave her on the floor. They leave her on the floor, right, all right? And he split. So you got to assume he probably didn't put his name on the 911 call. Cops come. Is she dead?
She ultimately dies. I don't know if she's dead on the scene, but they remove her. She cannot be resuscitated. And the medical examiner said it was involuntary. It was voluntary intoxication of cocaine, so it wasn't forced into her system. She took cocaine and then died.
What is the law then about just, you know, somebody's in trouble,
right,
and you drop them in a hallway and you run and you leave them? Isn't there a negligence thing that can be charged?
There's a couple of issues here. There's the morality of something, and then whether it could fall under criminal law.
We know they're low-life scum. All right, we don't have to get into the morality.
Leaving someone is obviously immoral, but it's very difficult in New York to charge someone when someone has voluntarily taken cocaine and died of a drug overdose. It's very difficult to charge another person, and there's actually a lot of proposals to amend New York state law to make the supplier of drugs accountable for possible homicide.
That's what I'm getting at. So in New York state, if somebody dies in your presence, even if you gave them the drug, if they took it voluntarily, you're not held accountable.
It's very difficult to build a charge like that in New York.
You know, and this is what I'm talking about.
But there's a couple of different issues. If you're not a drug dealer and you're doing drugs with someone, the law generally wants people to call 911. If someone's afraid they'll be charged with a homicide, they're less likely to call 911.
I got it.
So that's a reason why people aren't charged. A drug dealer is a different story. You probably want those people to be charged, but New York law doesn't allow it currently, and there are a lot of proposals to change that.
So the bottom line is this woman's dead, and it's her own fault. She took the drugs, but nobody's going to be charged in the aftermath of it.
Well, there might be other charges, as you mentioned. There might be drug paraphernalia charges, possible tampering with evidence charges for moving the body, but right now the police are indicating they don't plan to make any charges.
Awful. Okay, Counselor, thank you.